r/ididnthaveeggs is a subreddit for terrible recipe reviews by people who don't follow a recipe and then complain that it sucks. On a recipe for peach ice cream, 3 stars. I don't like peaches, so I substituted carrots. It wasn't very good. It needs more sweetness. Thanks, Jessica. Maybe don't make peach ice cream if you don't like peaches, and maybe if you're still trying to use that recipe, don't substitute carrot. Who chooses carrots as the substitute for peaches? 5 stars. I substituted tofu for the steak, corn pops for the potatoes, and used some dandelions instead of the jalapenos. It was awful. Never again. On a caramel ice cream recipe, I don't blame the recipe for what happened. I should have stopped after dropping the eggs, or after spilling half a bag of sugar, but yet, things got really bad when making the caramel. I used a cheap spoon made of cheap plastic. I didn't realize it was melting because the caramel would stick to the spoon and distort the spoon. The melted plastic sort of mixed with the caramel before cementing to the pot. I owe my housemate a new pot. My tip, use a heat-resistant spoon. 1 star. I noticed there were no eggs in this recipe, so I added one. What a disappointment. The edges were baked and the middle was complete mush, even after I put it in the oven for 40 minutes. You added it. There's a reason there's a reason there was no eggs in the recipe. Why would you add? Why did 2 people find this review helpful? Fuck, she added a bonus egg where there was no egg needed. 1 star. For safety reasons, please read this review. I made these for my 4 dogs that literally range in size from a toy Pomeranian to a Great Dane. Instead of doing a dog bone shape, I did a medium-sized cat shape. All 4 dogs loved these treats and went crazy for them. I mean, really crazy. In the chaos of getting these treats, my medium-sized rescue dog swallowed one of these whole, and it got stuck in his esophagus. He was hospitalized, and our vet bill was $1,000. I wanted to give these 5 stars because the dogs really loved them, but I want people to be aware of how much they love them. I would recommend making them small in size or tearing them into smaller bites when feeding them to your furry friends. It has been over a week, and my dog is doing great, but it was really scary. I just wanted others to be aware that these treats may be too good. This is on lemon pound cake. 1 star. This came out terrible. It was dense, not fully baked, and had a sour taste to it. So disappointed. Lemon pound cake was sour. If it wasn't fully baked, that's your fault. 1 out of 1,000 I would give this rating if I could. I don't know how this is supposed to be a chocolate chip cookie recipe. It doesn't say when to add the chocolate chips and how many to add. And since when do chocolate chip cookies have peanut butter? This isn't a chocolate chip cookie recipe. This is a peanut butter cookie recipe. 2 stars. Carrots have way too much sugar, so replace them with shredded kale. Cake turned out rather nasty, so 2 stars. Unsure what went wrong, but it's too dry also. We definitely recommend preparing this cake as written, as the carrots provide much needed texture and moisture. Well, you could have substituted the carrots for peaches. 1 star. Really poorly written recipe. No mention of corn. Do you cook the corn first? How much corn? That is a lot of cream. Is it for 1 recipe? Or to keep around? Do you just use crema? I'm totally confused. This recipe is for crema mexicana. Nowhere in this recipe does it call for corn, nor do I believe it's poorly written. Please read recipe thoroughly. It is a recipe for Mexican sour cream, not creamed corn. Wait, who is this person? Why did they expect corn? If the recipe doesn't mention corn, then you don't use the You don't use the corn. How much corn? None. There's no corn. 0. There was 0 corn. That's why it's not mentioned. What the what is this? How are these real people? 5 stars. I have quite a few recipes for vanilla pudding, but this one took the #1 spot. Not too sweet, smooth buttery consistency, nice vanilla finish. I did not follow the directions. I did not follow the directions. 5 stars. Thanks, Susan. 1 star. You didn't specify cooked or uncooked rice, so I used cooked rice, and of course, it turned out way too watery to eat. So I wasted 6 cups of milk because your recipe was unclear. Thanks a lot. Step 3 tells you to cook the rice until it's tender. It's a pretty big clue. Cooked rice is already tender. Others seem to have figured it out without issue. 1 star from Beth. Potatoes are super high oxalate, and suggesting subbing turmeric for saffron proves you don't get what a low oxalate diet is. I never stated this dish was for an oxalate diet. It's just a Spanish recipe for chickpea stew. Thanks for the 1 star rating. Much love. Alright, this is on a recipe for egg tarts. Hi, this didn't work for me. Me and my husband are non-GMO, gluten-free vegans and cannot use eggs, so I substituted this for mashed banana, and it just would not set. I followed all of the instructions, so I think this may be my oven, unfortunately, that cannot maintain temp, and in the end it was really runny and tasted quite bitter. So not sure what happened, but I won't be trying this again. I'm sorry, what a waste. Hi, Moria. An extreme substitution, like using mashed bananas in place of egg for an egg custard tart, is not always gonna work. I'm sorry that it felt like a waste of time, but sometimes one just has to acknowledge that a banana isn't an egg, you know? Man, that's a profound statement. Sometimes one just has to acknowledge that a banana isn't an egg. Put that on a t-shirt. Sell it on Etsy. This recipe is fantastic. I would like to address some of the bad reviews a couple people made. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. Do not change the recipe, then give it a bad review because you screwed it up. Cindy P noted that she had to skinny the soup up and then gave it 2 stars. Make the recipe as written, Cindy. If you're worried about that, which, by the way, is vital for life, eat a dang rice cake. Paulette didn't follow the recipe either. If she had read the recipe closely and watched the video, she would have known the importance of using canned tomatoes. Of course, fresh tomatoes will result in a weak flavor. It's common sense. Can you make this recipe paleo-friendly? To make this recipe paleo-friendly, you would have to remove the caramel and candy toppings and just eat the apples plain. A pie recipe I'm following called for shortening, but I didn't have enough, and now the pie is too long to fit in the oven. How can I fix this? How can I do this without eggs? Thanks. Hi, Jav. It's an egg-based dish, so you really can't. Sorry. This is on a recipe for a frittata. A frittata requires eggs. 1 star. Not everyone likes bacon or ranch. These are my 2 most hated flavors. Then why even bother looking at the recipe? Don't try it. It's that simple. Duh. On a recipe for French toast, 2 stars. Well, I'm sure this recipe would have been fantastic, but I think some people are overinflating their reviews. It was edible, sure, but I wouldn't waste my time making it again. I had no broshi or the other bread, so I substituted tortillas, which did not wait. They used tortillas for French toast, which did not soak up the egg mixture. As I am a vegan, I couldn't use the eggs they recommended, but the aquafaba from a can of garbanzo beans usually works fine. Not here. It was so soggy and tasted like canned beans. It's always worked in the past before. They were not quite as sweetly spiced as I hoped, but I think that was a bit of my fault. Accidentally added a shake or two of cumin before realizing it wasn't the nutmeg. Oops. Overall great recipe, but it wasn't as good as I expected it to be. So they made French toast, but then used tortillas, fucking, I don't know, garbanzo beans, and accidentally added cumin. That is a beautiful rainbow of horrible decisions. 1 star. Don't recommend putting the slow cooker on the stove to brown the meat. Mine split right in half as soon as I added the meat in. Big hot oil mess. That wasn't what the recipe meant. If you can brown in your slow cooker, e.g. it's like an instant pot that can sear, or the slow cooker has a sear function, then do it. Do not put the cooker on the stovetop. Very sorry you did that. Wait, so they put their slow cooker on the stove and split the slow cooker in half. Big hot oil mess. Put that on a t-shirt. Big hot oil mess. 1 star. I followed the recipe exactly, except that I replaced oil with applesauce. Unfortunately, it did not turn out well. Its consistency is neither brownie-like nor cake-like. I can't eat it. Sadly, I will have to dispose of the whole thing. I don't know what went wrong, as I followed the recipe exactly. Followed the recipe exactly. Exactly. Uh-huh. In the recipe above for olive oil brownies, I can't see where or how to add the black beans. Hi, Kate. There are no black beans in this recipe. People wanting to add random-ass ingredient. Like, if the recipe doesn't mention black beans, why the fuck do you want to add black beans? Kate, what is wrong with you? Not everything has black beans, Kate. 2 stars. You never said to take out the pork chops throughout the recipe. I'm assuming it was after step 2. Now I'm sure my pork chops are overcooked. The last sentence of step 2 says, once the pork chops are done searing, transfer them to a plate. Please, learn to read a little more closely before you complain and give it a 2-star rating to a fantastic popular recipe that thousands of others have made successfully. Oh snap! This is terrible. It uses way too much baking soda. There is no baking soda in this recipe. It calls for baking powder, which is not at all the same thing. This is a review for Russian soup. 1 star. It's probably very good. But now, how about some Ukrainian recipes instead? The title is, Barb, you can eat Russian soup without supporting them in the war. I'm sure that these waffles are awesome, and as a gluten-free person, well, I would never eat one of them as is. I use monk fruit instead of sugar, and of course gluten-free flours. I've also been losing weight over the last year, 40 pounds and counting. I want to keep that off so I can finally get under 200 pounds. These would be adverse to my weight loss, I am sure. Thanks for sharing your life story. 2 stars. Cut back the water by 1/2 cup, or the batter would have run over the pan. Cake fell and is dry. We will eat this cake, but I will not be using this recipe again. On a recipe for bourbon chicken, 2 stars. I made this dish and followed the recipe completely, except I omitted the bourbon. I found it not to be very tasty. It was just mainly sweet with a strong vinegar taste. It didn't taste like the takeout place I go to. The deep richness was missing. It was just mainly a sweet taste. You couldn't taste the chicken at all. I don't know what was wrong, but something is missing from this recipe. Fire! My son, 19, was heating the oil in a cast iron pan with a lid on it. When he took the lid off, the oil flashed. He popped the lid back on right away, which stopped the fire, but that quickly had melted the hood on the stove. We went out for burgers that night, aired out the house, and just baked the chicken the next day. Be careful, this recipe can be dangerous. Didn't have to make these as I live in Spain and we just go to the kiosk where a lovely man makes fresh churros every morning. He puts them in a paper cone and you take them to your favorite cafe, order a cup of thick chocolate, and enjoy. 1 star. I don't understand what has gone wrong, but there's nothing thick about my frosting. It looks like milk with half-melted butter in. This is not frosting. It is pudding/custard. 3 stars, haven't made it yet. Then why would you comment and rate it? That's nonsense. Didn't marinate for 12 hours because my boyfriend and I don't live together. I was cooking this at his place and wasn't gonna show up in the morning to set up. We've been dating for almost 3 years, so we have talked about it moving in together, but he wants to live in Brooklyn Heights and that's too far from work for me. Say what you want, but I also enjoy having my own space. Stubbed honey with agave nectar in because I'm a millennial. We'll be baking again. Delicious. I didn't have applesauce, so I stubbed in mayonnaise. I only had 3 eggs, so I added 4 tablespoons yogurt. I also used ginger jam instead of molasses, and then I added chopped pecans. It was terrific, even with all the substitutions. So you made a completely different cake. 1 star. 3 tablespoons of cornstarch made the filling so salty and bitter that I abandoned before baking. That's too bad, Lewis, because the flavor from the cornstarch cooks out after baking. Or you can use tapioca or arrowroot starch as a substitute next time. Being a female, this may sound odd, but I think I was actually turned on by this piece. I am a big fan of artichokes. Have them a couple times a month and prepare them the same way, except I only use butter to dip. But I'll try the lemon butter. It just seems like a sensuous piece. Am I crazy here? Or does anyone else agree? Thanks, Kim. What the fuck, Kim? On a vegan Yorkshire pudding recipe. I tried these, but they went a bit flat, so I tried them again with a few eggs, and they were much better. Luckily, I tested them in advance, as I had 2 friends who were vegan over for Sunday lunch, and they loved them. We'll make them again. Tried them again with a few eggs, and they were much better. I had 2 friends who were vegan. This bitch fed their vegan friends eggs. Oh, god damn it, the white monk. 3 stars. I did not make. Not what I was expecting from the title. I was thinking butter chicken with spinach. This is fried chicken breasts fried in butter. Should taste good? Can you use a gluten-free bun? No. The hamburger will know and refuse to stay on the bun. The people who are saying this is good know nothing about complementary flavors. It does not work and tastes awful. Sorry. Complementary flavors like tomato and cheese? I'll pop down my local pizzeria and tell them that their tomato cheese and cured sausage meat combo is embarrassing because you know nothing about complementary flavors. Behave honestly. Not a bean fan. Can another vegetable be substituted? Hi Britta. As this is a black bean stew, you can try substituting the beans, but you will lose the dish's authenticity. 1 star. Not sure how the recipe came out as we spent the day at the emergency room so my wife could get her burnt fingers looked at. Not the recipe's fault. No need to give a 1 star because your wife doesn't know a stove is hot. Tastes absolutely disgusting. It had better store-bought icing. I only gave 1 star because it did hold up for decorating/piping details, but the flavor is absolutely repulsive, adding the Crisco. Super disappointed at trying this new recipe. I'm sorry to hear this recipe isn't what you hoped for, but I'm curious because the recipe doesn't actually contain Crisco shortening. 3 hours. This took me 3 hours. My partner, Geoff, was really upset with the outcome. I didn't have white chocolate, so we substitute with mashed bananas, which was really tasty and much less sugar, so more healthy, but it did not set at all. I'm not sure if I get the temperatures wrong or if my thermometer is broken, honestly, but we ended up having to freeze it in the cold store, and then by the time it set, all the colors had run. Geoff told me that next year we just have to buy a cake. Ha ha. Worst mirror glaze recipe I've used. I'm sorry, won't be trying again. Hi Maura. Unfortunately you can't substitute the white chocolate in this recipe. It will totally throw off the consistency and it won't set. I spent a lot of time testing this recipe to get it just right, and it's intended to be made as it states in the recipe card. If a recipe mine does have substitutions that can be made, I usually share them in my blog post. Please keep that in mind for the future. Do you peel the onions? Yes, you peel the onions.